Hello, friends. I recorded an interview with my dear friend, Alexandria K. She is a multi-certified holistic well-being guide. She brings together the body, the mind, and the soul into alignment. So she and I share a lot in common. We actually met in our holistic coaching certified program, and we instantly connected via Zoom and just started trading healing sessions with one another. We're definitely in the same frequency. So she's someone I go to when I need counsel, when I need advice, and I do the same for her. So I thought she would be an amazing guest to talk to. And so this interview is us talking about what it means to be spiritual right now, 2024, in the human body. You can find her links in the description, and I hope you enjoy. Okay, so I'm gonna open up a sacred container here.
Yeah.
If you're cool with that, I've got all my smudging tools. So we'll start with some sage. Let's just, I'm gonna light this and then we'll take a few breaths together.
Mm-hmm.
So just sitting nice and tall from the base of the spine all the way up through the back, the mid back, the upper back, all the way to the crown of the head. Taking a big inhale through the nose. And a slow exhale through the nose. Inhale, inflating the belly. Exhale softly. Inhale, inflating belly, ribs, and chest. Exhale, chest, ribs, and belly. A few more breaths like this. Deep inhale through the nose. Soft exhale. Inhaling deeply. And exhaling softly. Allowing yourself to arrive into this present moment, here and now. Letting go of everything that happened before and what's to come. Practicing true presence. And if you are feeling compelled to call in your helping spirits, your spirit team to be here with us as part of this conversation, do that now. We'll just ask for guidance and support and clarity as we share what we're meant to share in this space together. I'm using sage to clear my own energy, but also the virtual space that we have together that we're sharing in this moment. When you're ready, you can open up the eyes. Hello.
Hi.
Hi. So I want this to be a very conversational interview. And I'll share with you what came through this morning as I was, I think, in the shower. The guides were very much about, they want us to talk about what it's like to be a spiritual person right now. And it's funny, right? Because we talk about it all the time, you and I, like on a personal level and also on a professional level. But there's something about doing it right now and recording it and sharing it with the viewers that are meant to hear it, that feels potent and important. So so how does that resonate for you?
Yeah, I firstly want to say I think it's so funny that as you were opening the space, I was just seeing a bunch of water and I was like, what is that? So I think it's interesting that this came to you in the shower. There's that. But yeah, that resonates. And I'm excited to see what comes forth from us talking about this. It's like one of our casual conversations to me.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I guess just to start, one thing that I think is so powerful, that is so basic, but just this little opening 5-minute ritual that I like to do before I meet with clients, or I do it with clients, but to do it in this context, like with friends or with, I don't know, any conversation seems so, it feels like it's such a necessary step for me lately.
Yeah.
You have a ritual like that?
Yeah, if I could create a sacred space before every conversation, I would. But I know that's not like accepted yet. That's not normalized. But yeah, similar to you, like just calling in my guide, setting the intention that the space is protected. Sometimes that is clearing with Palo Santo incense. Just making sure that things are clear, things are covered, things are watched over, like as that conversation is happening, and always setting the intention that whatever needs to come through for the highest good of everyone involved comes through with ease. Right?
Yeah, I got chills. They're like, yes. Applaud, you got it.
Yay.
I know, right? Gold star.
I receive it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if only we could do that every single time, especially with the harder conversations, but like if every single time we just took the download I got was just 5 breaths. 5 breaths changes everything in your body.
Yeah.
Like it really does bring you to the present moment and lets go of so many things. And we
Yeah.
forget to do it, you know?
Yeah, totally agree. I think you and I have talked a lot about the difference between reacting versus responding and like knowing the difference. And I think being able to set that intentional space with those couple of deep breaths is how you respond rather than just pure instinctive reaction.
Totally. Totally. No, I know. It's so easy. It's so easy. 5 deep breaths, setting an intention. It's that simple. It takes like 2 minutes, literally.
Right. Right. And like even doing it if it's not accepted by the other person that you're speaking with or the other people, like I think that's a part of the challenge too of being so grounded and knowing your reason behind doing things that you still do them even if other people are like, what is she doing?
Totally. And you can do it silently to yourself. I had a client who was like in a work environment where it was not tolerated, and so she would like just close her eyes or go into an office or something, go into the bathroom and do a ritual like this because she felt uncomfortable, unfortunately, clearing herself. And I look forward to the day where it's normal to do that before every meeting, every phone call.
Right. Like, give me a minute. We're gonna open the space. Then we can have this business meeting, this tough conversation. Like life would go so much more smoothly if we did that, I think.
I know. Okay. Well, we'll let that unfold as it unfolds. I'm in charge of that one. What else is coming forward for you? Like, and when I say spiritual person, to me, the definition is someone that is connected to source, and it could be whatever you want to call it, God, whatever, all the names, church, whatever, you know. What does it mean to live in this way? And maybe you have a different definition. I'm curious to hear.
I think that definition is pretty much a mirror of mine. Like, I think a spiritual person, like you said, is someone that's connected to whatever energy, whatever energetic term that they resonate with. And they're living in a way that always considers that energy, always considers that spiritual overlay or undertone sometimes of like all of life. And being a spiritual person right now, I think is it's interesting. It's a very interesting experience. And I think, you know, like with me currently being in yoga teacher training, we've been talking a lot about like when yoga was originally passed down through the generations, life was very different. There were a lot of aspects of modern life that just were not even a concept, like an idea yet. And so being on that spiritual path was, we could argue, a little bit easier just because there were a lot less distractions. There were a lot less just different pathways of like how to do things, lifestyles, all of the things. And so I think learning those ancient practices, having that spiritual connection in modern times, it requires a lot more. Is willpower the word? Maybe it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it requires a lot more willpower and devotion. I think you really have to be consciously devoting yourself to being on this path, to integrating these insights, these practices, because you are going to be challenged in integrating them. much more than like the ancient, yogis and like wisdom keepers were hundreds of years ago. So yeah, I think I just needed to say that.
Yeah. No, and I totally resonate with that. And yeah, when I went through my teacher training, we were learning a style of yoga that wasn't for everybody. It was so secret. It was so under wraps. So, because it was so potent. So, like, so now it's like perfect because it's such a crazy time that you need the most potent stuff.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of people don't realize that, like, whether they call themselves spiritual or not, the pace of life is so crazy, as you're saying, and we have so much information coming at us all the time. We have access to everything in the world that we want, and it affects us whether we're conscious of it or not. And back to clearing, if you're constantly ingesting, it's hard to digest all that stuff. And so for me, like, yoga is the medicine always for everything. um, I don't know how I lived without it for the first part of my life, but I found it and I was like, what have I been doing all along?
Yeah.
Um, but I love that you said, like, you relating it to just being in the world today versus being in the world back then. And I think it's interesting, like, we call ourselves spiritual because we do all these things and we love to do them. Like, it's fun for us or whatever, like it's helping us cope and all these things, and it benefits us. But I think people back then just did them. Like, they didn't.
Right? Yeah. Like they were just like, yeah, I'm gonna go meditate for 2 hours because
That's what we do every morning.
Right.
That's what I do. I go to my yoga, I meditate, and then I start my day.
Normal.
And and
Normal.
it's become optional, but now I think it's circling back and it's like not optional. But it is interesting to see how this is shifting. And so, like, I don't know if I call that spiritual or just living in the world today. You have to integrate, you know what I mean? Like, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, that's so interesting that you said for you, like, it feels like it's no longer becoming optional. Like, we're kind of circling back around to like where it is almost mandatory, whether people are conscious of it or not, that they have to have some sort of practice to stay connected either to source or to themselves. Because like navigating life right now, you're right, it is kind of like forcing you to have a higher level of awareness for things. There's a lot of resonance on that, and I'm kind of just like
for sure.
Yeah, it's so interesting that, because the way I think I'm seeing it right now is kind of like the infinity of like you're going through this like ebb and flow, and now we're cycling back to like you have to establish this connection again. And I think we're seeing that reflected in all of the studies that are being done, like on mindfulness, on spirituality, on yoga, on psychics, even things of that nature. Like, we're starting to see Western science kind of like start to say, loop back, as you said, of just like, these things that have been around and considered to be woo-woo and weird for hundreds of years, there's actually some scientific merit to this. And so, right? And so now you have more people that are interested in these things. And yeah, I think that's incredibly interesting that we're cycling back, whether we're conscious of it or not yet.
Yeah. Yeah. And the prediction, or at least what I see when I look going forward, is how many more people are going to jump on board to that and recognize it, because it's going to get really difficult, as we know, in our time. And there's a lot more changes that need to happen. There's a lot more breakdowns, breakdown to breakthrough needs to happen. And so I'm looking forward to it.
Same.
And I'm not scared, because I have such a connection to source. So I'm not, and I'm, we know we're in a different category than others, but it's so fascinating. It's going to be really fascinating to watch, and I'm here for it, and I'm excited for it.
Like, I feel like I have had the mentality of please dismantle everything immediately. Like, I'm fine with that, even though it's going to be rocky in a lot of ways and rough in a lot of ways, it's the dismantling that helps us build something new. And I think collectively we've been in a process of dismantling for longer than people think.
Yeah.
Yeah, much longer than people think. Like what's coming to mind right now for me is there's a quote. I saw it from a history teacher online. Unfortunately, I can't remember their name. But they were discussing the concept of like revolution and like things having these huge, massive, impactful changes on the collective. And he was essentially saying that like the revolution is not one moment in time. It's not one event that happens that completely catalyzes the change for everything. It's all of these moments throughout time, throughout history that build upon themselves to create the change that we need. And so I think the revolution has been happening
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
the last 100+ years.
Yeah.
And we've been kind of separating it into like, oh, this is history and this is now. And it's like, no, all of these things are very much connected. And when you look at the full picture of what's going to happen collectively, they all matter. Things that happened 300 years ago matter to what's happening now. So yeah, that's what was present for me.
Yeah, no, it's so true. It's so fascinating. It's not just one moment, like you say, it's multiple. There's so many steps to make all these changes. Holy moly.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's going to take time. And I think when it comes to being a spiritual person right now, I think the call is to be so connected to your truth, like your capital T truth, that you're able to more easily navigate all of the things that are inevitably going to be changing in our reality over the next however long.
Yeah, forever.
Right? For the rest of our lives, basically.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. That's like the biggest revelation I think that will come for a lot of people. And I remember that came for me in my yoga teacher training. It was like, who am I? I dismantled myself after all these life changes. So like, what's left? What am I? Who am I? And meditation really helped me remember who I was and love that, like fall in love with myself completely. And that foundation, my God, there's so much to say about that. And I was talking to a friend a couple of days ago about self-love and the definition of that, which to me is like exactly that, just being so committed and devoted to who you are and yourself. It's beyond even authenticity. Like that's not even the right word for it. It's like so deeply ingrained and entrenched that you do not let anything shift you. Nothing. And it's beautiful because a lot of people aren't like this. So when you see someone like that, you're like, ooh, what's that? That's a thing. I want to be around that.
Please stay forever. Yeah.
Please stay. Because it's like a blend of confidence and like truth. It feels like honesty, like deep truth, you know?
Yeah. I've been exploring that as well. Just the concept of truth and like I said, that capital T truth. And I think I'm really realizing the difference between like a lowercase truth and like that capital T truth.
Right.
The truth that, I mean, as you know, like resonates with you on a soul level. Like you feel it in your body, you feel it in your heart, you feel it in your soul. Like it might take your mind a little bit to catch up to it, but every other sense already knows.
Yeah.
You know? And tuning into that frequency of like that truth to me is like being connected to the direct line of communication between yourself and all that exists, you know?
That's it, right?
Right? Yeah. And so once you've connected to that, like everything can happen. Literally everything can happen. But there's that unshakable foundation of like being able to hear yourself, to hear the universe, to hear the elements, all of the things in a way that you're able to more easily move through everything that happens, everything that you see, everything that you experience. And I think that's my deepest wish for people right now in this moment, is just to tune into what their truth is, because once you've made that connection, genuinely nothing can influence your perspective, your mindset on things, the decisions you make, because everything else becomes almost illusory, because it's like, well, this isn't true for me. So then no, it becomes a very easy no.
So easy. There's so much freedom in that. It's like, okay, yes, no. It's just very clear.
Right. Right. It's the concept like in somatics of like, is it a full body hell yes, or is it a full body hell no? And
Yeah.
like being able to differentiate those things. And it does become so easy to just say, this doesn't feel good for me. This doesn't feel true for me. I'm not going to listen to it. I'm not going to do it. And I think currently with all of the, what word do I want to use here? With all of the distortions and distractions, being able to tune into yourself in that way and say like, this isn't true for me, just like you said, it adds so much freedom to your life, and we need that.
I know it's so beautiful. I love it. I love the clarity. I love the like knowing. I'm so curious if you've had times where you're like, I don't really know, because I have, though I'm in a space of knowing and being very clear on who I am, there are still moments where I get tripped up and I'm faced with yes, but, or you like,
Yeah.
no, but, you know what I mean? Like these little nuanced things. And eventually it becomes clear, but I'm curious if you've had those moments where it's like,
For sure. For sure. Like even with us having this conversation, there are so many times throughout my life where I will tell the people around me, I genuinely have no idea what's going on. And I think you probably heard me say that so many times.
I love that. I love that so much.
I don't know. And there are going to be times where it's not as clear, not as crystal clear as you would want it to be. And I think I've found that the times where it's not as clear, it's because there are a lot of layers that are influencing everything that I'm feeling. And so like the lack of clarity is like coming from the fact that there are so many elements and layers and portals that I need to go through before I can actually get to that clarity. So I found that like, even if there's a yes in there or like a no in there somewhere, like in my body, you kind of have to like almost excavate like what's on top of it before you can actually feel the full resonance of that hell yes or that hell no. Yeah. And a lot of the times it's some childhood, past life, previous stuff. That's usually what's clouding that clarity. So yeah, that's definitely, you know, I've been there a lot where I'm like, Lisa, I don't know.
Yeah, totally. And I love that you say that, because there's such a pressure to know. Like, how can you know? Again, back to like having connection to source, how can you know everything in your human limited self with your mind controlling you, with your emotions coming forward? How can you freaking know? Just like, let that shit go. My God.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think it's so almost, it's a little funny, like in the spiritual community, that there's like a lot of emphasis on like just having full intuition and full clarity a lot of the times, just because it's like you're having a full human experience. Like you said, like your thoughts are going left, your emotions are going right. Your body is like, well, I don't really know where to go because you're both going in two different directions. So it takes time. And I think a part of the beauty of the practices that we talked about, meditation, yoga, whatever it may be for someone, is that those practices, I think the intention behind them is to bring all of that back together. So like all of the elements that are going in separate directions, to just have like 30 minutes even to just pull it all back together, to sit with everything that's present. And I think that's how you find the clarity. It's not through like trying to ignore everything that's there, you know, trying to like ignore the yes, but. It's like, okay, no, sit with that. Sit with the yes, but. What comes after that but? You know, if it's no and, what comes after that and? Sit with that. Be with that. That's how you find that clarity. There's no, I wish there was a way to just like easily, quickly know everything all of the time. Unfortunately, there is not.
Yeah.
Sitting with things is the gateway. It's the portal to literally everything. And I know that not many people want to hear that.
No, and I even like that phrase. I always tell people I sit with things. A lot of people say I think about it, but to me, there's such a difference, because we're putting, again, emphasis on the mind to do all this work and to resolve the problem and to come up with a solution. But oftentimes I think it's the non-linear, the fantasy, if you want to call it, the imaginative, creative, intuitive part of us that has the answer, that we're just not, that we're like, you know, we go into problem solving mode because that's easy and we know how to do it. And it's a, you know, a pathway we've done all the time. But sitting with something just means like, I'm going to be uncomfortable. I'm going to not know. I'm going to make space, and I don't know how long it's going to take. It might take 10 minutes. It might take 10 years. So it's like so many uncomfortable things. And it gets easier to do it, but it's not always something we want to do because we want the answer. We want to know.
Right. It's a muscle, like in the same way that you work your muscles through exercise, through whatever your exercise of choice is, and you build that strength over time. Like being able to sit with yourself and sit with the capital T truth is also a muscle that has to be built, because we've been conditioned to not sit with that truth, to not sit with ourselves. We have been surrounded our whole lives, for most of us, if you were born and raised in the Western world, like you have been surrounded by distractions in a variety of ways, like your whole life. And so when you start doing these practices and you start practicing sitting with yourself, it feels like your whole world is caving in on itself, really, because there's nothing there to like, ooh, shiny, ooh, pretty, to like distract you from like whatever has been inside of you, within your mind, within your heart for however many years. And I think that's also a part of the grief for people, is like realizing just how long something has been present, and like the discomfort of that, of like realizing I've gone my whole life with this thing here, this element here that's been influencing my decisions and the way that I live. And so it can be a lot to like, it can be a lot. And I can very much empathize with why people encounter the stillness and the awareness that comes with some of these practices. And they're like, yeah, no, never want to do that again. I'm never going back to that class. I'm never going back to that energy healer. Like that sucked. I'm not doing it, you know? But again, it's that muscle. Like in order to reestablish that connection with yourself, with source, with everything, you have to be willing to sit, you know? Like so much can happen in sitting.
Yeah, that's the process, I think, you know? Yeah, the past couple full moons brought all of that up for me, and I had to face these really sad and dark parts of myself and just examine them. It was like this slideshow of all these failures. And I can laugh now, but at the time I was crying. I was so upset. I was like, oh my God, what have I been doing? So it's not easy. It's not an easy process. Even with practice, I think, you know, it gets easier, but there are still parts that are showing themselves. There are still these shadow parts that want to be seen and heard. And I mean, I'm so much better for it. I'm so glad I did that. It's like, I can do what I want now, you know, like I got through all that mucky nastiness, and full moons illuminated it for me.
I think was the last full moon, or was it the new moon that was in like Cancer in like Vedic astrology, I think, messed me up. And I think I've said to you, like they always do. If the moon is in Cancer, I'm going through it. Just assume that I am not okay. So there's your energy to you. And I think that the thing that I want to say about that, like on behalf and like for others, is like let certain insights come to you. Like I think when we talk about healing and shadow work and being on the spiritual path, so much of it sounds like action oriented, of like you're doing the healing. I'm healing my inner child, I'm healing my inner teenager, I'm healing this part of me that was wounded from this. And it sounds like very active a lot of the time. And I think that puts a lot of pressure on people to feel like they have to be doing something in order for like the insight or the clarity to come in. But I think sometimes just let it come to you, because it will. Like if you are open, it will, I promise. If you're open and you're receptive and you have even internally communicated to yourself or to the universe that you're open to receiving the healing, I promise it'll show up like in
100%.
ways that you like never thought that it would. And I think even I've noticed in my own practice, sometimes it just means getting curious with something when I notice it. So like something that I've been moving through recently is shame and like a lot of guilt. And so it'll come up and then it'll go away. And anytime it comes up and I feel it, I first acknowledge to myself, okay, like I'm feeling shameful right now. And then just not even doing anything with that,
Sure.
just like
Yeah.
noticing of like, this is how I feel right now. I'm just going to hold this. If it comes back around, it'll come back around. And so for the past week, it's been this noticing and then just even asking myself, like, where is this coming from? Like, even if I don't get an answer immediately, because sometimes you won't, like sometimes it won't be this like instant clarity, but even just the posture of asking the question, like, where is this coming from? What is this rooted in? Eventually, your soul is going to answer you. Your soul will answer you eventually.
Yeah.
And so eventually I've received the answer, for where that shame was coming from. And it's like, okay, now I can process this. But it took time. And so I think people can be a little hard on themselves when it comes to like doing this work as well, because once they become aware of something that's present, it's immediately like, okay, well, how do I fix it? Similar to what you said earlier, like, how do I resolve it?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, let's unpack it for a second. Like this feeling, this emotion, this energy, whatever it may be, it took time for that to be cultivated. Sometimes it took months, sometimes it took years. Like sometimes your entire childhood was spent unconsciously, whether you were aware of it or not, cultivating that energy that's there. And so it's going to be like a week of healing, whatever that means, to like clear that or like fix that, like sometimes it is instantaneous. Sometimes that is like the way your soul has shit set up. Sometimes it happens quickly. Okay, that's gone.
Yeah.
But a lot of the times, like it is a process, just like it was a process to create it, and just let it come to you. Just open the space, like in your heart, your mind, that you are willing to explore this thing. And I promise your heart will show it to you. The universe will show it to you when it's time for you to see it.
Well said, my friend. It's such an important concept. It's like, all these like feminine principles we're talking about of making space, of receiving the information versus going out and grabbing it, that muscle is so deficient culturally. And so just allowing ourselves, it's so beautiful. I'm like thinking back to when I taught these little kids yoga, and they were like kindergarten, so 5 years old to like fourth grade, so 10, 11-year-olds. And their favorite part, besides like running around and playing like freeze yoga, was to meditate. They're like, they freaking loved it. They just loved lying down next to one another. And I would walk them through and we would do like a breathing exercise, and they would close their eyes and they just ate it up. I could feel how happy they were to pause.
Yeah.
And it's so natural for us to do that, but we've lost the practice and maybe the desire to, but just we forget the benefits. We forget how potent it is and how much happens when we just take a break. And
where I'm training at currently, sometimes like on Sundays they do have kids yoga, so you'll just hear like, a bunch of kids like roaring like lions like in the back, and you're like, okay.
So fun.
I know, but like even with that example, I think that's a perfect example, because like when we're children, we're so receptive to literally everything. We're so open to cosmic awareness. We're so open to communing with all beings, like regardless of whether they're human or not. Like we're just open to the whole experience. And then it's over time that conditioning comes in, and like we become less and less receptive. We become more and more closed off. And so it's when it comes to inner child healing, I think for a lot of us, yes, it is about healing the parts of us that are wounded, but how can we find just the curiosity again of just being alive?
Yeah.
Like the curiosity, the play, the openness, the happiness of just like being alive, being a sensory being, and like having this whole sensory input experience, which is basically what life is on a multidimensional level. Just your senses experiencing everything. Like, how can we get back to that? Like accessing that, because I think that's what life was supposed to be like for all beings. And then, we had our own ideas of like what life could look like. But I think joy and receptivity is also a pathway to like being a spiritual person in modern times, because joy is not something that's a currency that we all know how to exchange with each other anymore.
I know. It's so sad.
Yeah.
I love that though. I totally agree with that mentality of part of being spiritual means accepting the whole experience, the dark, the light, everything. Like that is why we're here, in my opinion.
Right.
And if you deny that, you deny yourself the experience, you deny humanity, I guess, on some level, because it's also like we're all like this. That's like we're all humans, so we're all having those same dark and light parts of us. And then, as you enlighten, you get to choose how and where you want to go and how you want to exist. That's part of knowing more, is like, oh, I'm going to make the choice of lightness today, but over here I'm going to make the choice of darkness. And
facts,
right, like knowing that. But both, yeah. So for sure, I think once you can do that, or you get to the place in your experience where you're like, okay, I know I'm gonna experience everything. It's such a different world. Like you're not bound to things in the same way, and it doesn't become so personal. I think that's what I experience.
Right. Yeah. Like, yeah, we could go so many places with that, because I think my journey has been one of darkness, truly. Like a lot of my healing process has been exploring darkness, not just my own, but like the darkness within other people, the darkness within situations, within ancestral lines. Like it's been some heavy, dark stuff that I've been like processing, but it almost feels like I've gotten so used to being in that darkness though, simply because like I know that's where the transformation is. Like I know that's where the healing is. And I know that there is healing in light as well. I know that, but the deeply transformative alchemy that happens like in those dark spaces, that like that's where I live.
Yeah.
I feel like that's where I'm most uncomfortable yet comfortable at the same time. And so that's why I think I always encourage people, like you said, to accept both aspects of life. There's no black and white. Unfortunately, it would be very easy if there was, but a lot of life is gray. A lot of life has spectrums to everything, nuances to everything, and being able to hold space for your whole experience is how you access all of you. Like if you're just focusing on the light aspects, the good aspects of yourself, you're almost neglecting your self access to like your full identity, your full soul identity, actually. And like your soul has experienced darkness before, and there's wisdom in that. But if you're denying those dark spaces, you'll never get access to that wisdom. There might be like a whole energetic upgrade DNA recode that's present in that, but you'll never know.
There usually is.
There usually is. That's the gag. That's the secret. That's the joke.
Yeah. No, it's so true. It's so true. Yeah, I've explored so much darkness too. I'm very comfortable with all of the darkness. Like nothing I haven't seen at this point. So
right.
Yeah, but I will say I do sense for myself how processing all of that darkness, like the really big, heavy life purpose darkness stuff and ancestral stuff that's been with me for a long, long time, has I think there are stages of it. Like I think I have reached the stage where I've done a lot of it and it's not as extreme anymore. You know what I mean? So like, yeah, because the wounds that I've tackled are like so deep. You just feel how long they've been around. And
Mhm.
it's not just with me, it's with generations of people. So I feel like there is an endpoint, I guess is what I'm saying, to some of the dark stuff. Not that more won't come, but it
Yeah.
seems like there are layers and levels within all of that. And there's, the universe has balance.
Hmm.
For every dark there is light. That's just how
Hmm.
it is. And same for every
Right.
light there's dark. So, I really do believe in that justification of experiences or karma, if you want to call it that,
Mm.
like that stuff
Yeah.
is all shifting. So I see that in my life. I see a lot more ease and a lot more flow, and back to like masculine and feminine energies, a lot more receptivity, a lot more things coming to me, attraction, things just show up versus like the parts of my life where I've had to really work, and because I thought that's what I had to do. So I did it. So I reached out and grabbed things.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I love that. I love that. It reminds me of like the creation story, like in Hinduism with like Shiva,
Mhm.
and Shakti. And like Shiva sat in darkness for like thousands of years, and just like meditating in that space
Yeah.
until Shakti was created, and like that dance, which is inevitably what created our universe, like in that, methodology of thinking. And so just we, like you said, the balance. And so I love that you're like in that more Shakti, like
Mhm.
feminine, receptive, joyous, dancing energy, because I feel like that's like the little ancestral like gift of like, thank you for carrying the heavy load. Please
Yeah.
enjoy.
Yeah.
Please enjoy life now.
It really is. It really
Yeah.
is. What was I going to say? Something came to mind and I just lost it. Something about the dance, the dark and the light. Oh, I think back to your point about like denial or avoidance of things. I also feel very strongly how there's this messaging in our culture about avoiding the dark and the heavy and all that stuff,
Yeah.
However, we've already said this, the portal through which you receive the light. You're doing yourself a disservice to avoid it. And I wish for people to understand that. And it's hard because we have such a binary culture of like good and evil. Politics is like pitting people against one another. It's always a fight. It's always a freaking fight. Like, wait a second.
Always.
Wait a
Always.
second. When did you become so disillusioned that you didn't notice that you are both sides? You are the same. This is all within. So the
Mirror.
message, yeah, the message really is integration, is remembering that you
Mm,
have all of these parts within you. You have the dark, you have the light, you
mm.
have the various political parties within you. And
Right.
there's no reason to fight. There's no reason to create this tension. Yeah, that's like my wish for humanity. If I could make a wish, it would be to have
Mm,
everyone experience that so they could fully understand
yeah.
how important it is to honor and
Mhm.
recognize all the parts.
Yeah. I wish the same. I completely agree with you that we culturally exist in this binary of good and evil. And I think that has been perpetuated by so many different resources that has kind
That's a
of
generous word, by the way.
very generous word. Resources that have kind of integrated that binary into our cultural collective perspective. But accessing wisdom is being able to hold both, being able to understand both, acknowledging both, the wisdom in both. It's, I go back to nature. Like, I feel like nature exists because she is meant to be one of our greatest teachers. And, unfortunately, so many of us have been turned off from hearing her. But she holds everything. She holds bugs. She holds lava. She holds dirt. She holds flowers. She holds fertilizer. All of these things that would be considered icky yucky, but also these very like beautiful things as well. And so if nature can do it, and if we're a part of nature, why haven't we yet learned, how to hold both, exist in both, because we're always existing in both. And I think so much of the disconnection, so much of our strife collectively is because we're trying to push life into the binaries of our perspective instead of just living in the reality, the capital T truth of what is, like you're making almost like the work smarter, not harder. And like everyone collectively is like working harder for what reason? I'm not sure. but it really all could be so much more simple than the programming, the conditioning would have you believe. Like there, I think, is also the programming that this is just the way life is, and not enough emphasis on the truth that like we are creating this reality every day with our choices, with our decisions, with how we choose to exist in the world. We are creating this reality that we're saying is just the way that it is. But like if you change the way that you are, how will that change the way that things are? You know, like it's comes back to you. The magnifying glass comes back to you.
It's hard. That's the hardest one, I think. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to see that. Oh my God. I'm responsible for the mess I'm in. What? That sucks. I want to
I'm the
blame someone else. Not me. It can't be me.
No.
What are some ways that you're creating your reality right now?
Good question. It's going to sound a little cliche, but it is the truth. I think the main way that I'm creating my reality right now is listening to my heart. For so long, I lived in my head. I like just purely existed through my cognitive awareness. And while that can be great sometimes for like analytical conversations in everyday life, it's not that great. Like being in your head all the time like that and like over processing, you're overstimulating yourself. Like you're missing a lot of key elements of what it just means to be alive and experience things when you're just living fully from the mind. And you know, I'll never forget like my therapist like a couple of years ago, like she was the one that kind of mirrored that back to me of like, I've noticed you like make decisions from your head a lot and you rarely check in with like how your heart feels. Right. And so I think my lesson for this year has been learning how to not only hear my heart, but also to trust it and to make decisions from that space. And of course, he chooses right now to mow. I am sorry if you can hear that.
No, it's all good.
But yeah, like just learning how to honor what my heart wants at any given time, because I believe that whatever my heart wants, it wants it for a reason. Like I think you and I have talked about this. Like I don't believe that our desires exist on accident. I believe that our desires arise within us because like it's our higher self, it's the universe, God, whoever that is communicating to us like this is something that's why you want it so much, because it's meant to be on your path. And so following that wisdom, I think has just radically transformed my life, especially in the last like couple of months in ways that I didn't even know was possible. Like, I feel like one of the things that I've learned is that when you're following the wisdom of your heart, things will manifest a lot quicker than if you're just trying to like think about it and like do like some 10-step thought manifestation, you know, thing. Like, just what does your heart want, you know? And like, what does your heart truly need to manifest that desire? Because it's going to require that you do things that make you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You're going to have to make a decision. You're going to have to do something that makes you uncomfortable, but you're choosing yourself in doing that. And I think when you're choosing yourself in that way, like, I don't know, I feel like everything responds to you, because I think your frequency is different, your energy is different. And so it's so much easier for things to come in because you've created that bridge.
Yeah.
So yeah, just as cliche as it sounds, if you listen to your heart, man, things will start happening.
Yeah, I love it. I do the same. And I don't think it's cliche. I don't think actually people talk about it enough. Maybe in like spiritual circles they do, but like outside of that, yeah. I mean, I think of the heart as a portal. It's a communication system. It receives information. Like I get information through my heart before anywhere else. Yeah. And I know when things are coming. And like lately it's all been really positive, but I used to know when like negative things were coming because I could feel like a heartbreak feeling. It was so crazy. I was like, what's wrong? Uh-oh. But it's such an amazing, our heart has the biggest electromagnetic frequency of the whole body, every organ, our heart. So the yogis say the heart has the power of 1,000 suns. 1,000 suns in your inside of you. And you ignore that? Like what? Wake up. Your mind isn't even that powerful. Your mind is not even that powerful.
Right.
Because you can tell your mind what to do. That's also what yoga and meditation teaches you. You can direct it. It's just a mission control, you know? So yeah, I don't think it's cliche. I love it so much. I have been really also learning how to live through that means. That's been my hardest. I like the physical I've got down, the mental I figured out. Emotions are always, spiritual's just whatever. I
What
can't
it is.
it, it's always been a strong sense for me, but the emotions, like, yeah, the trust bit and to be open to hearing it and like, really? It's coming through my heart? That's so weird. I thought it was so weird.
Yeah. It feels foreign at first.
It really truly does.
Like you said, like we're not really conditioned to listen to that part of us at all. So then when you start doing it, I think for me, you discover just how loud your heart actually is. Because I think I've seen a lot where it'll say like, oh, the whispers of your heart. And it's like, girl, your heart whispers, mine screams. Mine is like
me too.
What I want.
So how do you feel different palpitations and stuff? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Like, oh my gosh. Like it reminds me of when I had my first like true heart space opening experience, like after years of it being closed off. I was just walking around with this full sensation in my chest at all times. Like I'd cry at everything. Like I could see like a parent like with their child in the grocery store, and here I am just bawling at that because I'm like feeling the love, you know?
Yeah.
But I think that's a testament of like you saying just how powerful your heart is. And like once you really open that space, that's a whole landscape that you can
moly.
So much. Yeah.
I'm thinking about healing work I've done on clients and where I've looked at their heart and I'm like, whoa. And my own heart has been this way too, where like it was shut down or there's like walls around it or it's really dark visually. Like I see it as a very dark space. For me, I actually have this painting where I drew a heart, but it's also a light bulb. And so the light bulb is turned on. And that was just how I felt after I did a lot of work to open up my heart again. And I think that's really kind of the essence of it. You know, we have control over how we treat it or how it's been treated. Maybe like we've had experiences that shut us down and even shut down different parts of the heart. I've seen like different little rooms, different chambers get shut down for different reasons. But then, you know, the light side is you get to have these experiences again, maybe that can open them up or like being open to those kinds of experiences. And lately that's definitely been happening for me where I'm like, whoa, what's happening?
I love that for you.
In the most beautiful way, but like also, holy moly, this is a new sensation, you know?
Oh, I love that. I felt that. I love that.
Nice. Yeah.
Everything leads back to the heart. Everything leads back there. Like that's your bridge. That's one of your most sacred portals to all that is. Like, yeah, go with your heart. Even if it feels weird, even if it feels foreign, like your heart, unlike your mind, is not going to lead you somewhere that you don't need to be.
It's true, like, right?
Heart only has your best interest at heart, like genuinely only wants the best for you. And when you tune into that space, like it's almost like that direct line of communication between you and your higher self. You put on the headset, you know, and you are just able to hear and navigate things so much more clear.
Yeah.
And yeah, like it's powerful shit happens when you listen to your heart. Powerful thing.
I hope. Yeah, that's just beautiful. I think that's a really good conclusion. Unless there's anything else to share, that feels so good.
No, that feels good. That feels yay. Yay.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful for you and for doing this and for sharing your wisdom. And I wish the right people receive this information and potentially reach out to you or to me if they have more questions. But thank you.
Thank you for having me. This was beautiful. I love talking about things like this, you know, so thank you.